Tunisia have become the second African team to qualify for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Egypt, Algeria, and Cape Verde are really on the cusp now. We're going to discuss all of the action from Matchday 8 coming up next on the African Football Report. Hello and welcome back to the African Football Report on the African Five-Side Podcast. I'm your host, Maher Mezahi, and this podcast is brought to you by africasaCountry.com. We are back on africasaCountry.com. We took a month-long publishing break, but now there are officially articles back up on the website, so you can go over there to check out any critical analysis on the African continent. There's a decent article called Colonize Then, Deport Now, talking about really the similarities between Trump's deportation policies and regime, how it revives a colonial blueprint first drafted by the American Colonization Society. I learned a lot about this in the history of Liberia. So if that interests you, I'm going to put a link to the article in the description below. Anyways, let's talk about I didn't watch as many matches in Matchday as I did Matchday 7, just 5 or 6. But in terms of results, Morocco got a 2-0 result in Zambia. I didn't watch all of this. I watched maybe the first 30 minutes on and off. But Graggy rotated some of his players. Morocco was playing away, which is quite rare. And I think sometimes we think that they have never played away from home, over the last 5 or 6 years. It's not true. It's just that they haven't often played away from home. But when they have played away from home, they've had some decent results. Like this 2-0 against Zambia is quite good. And then they beat Gabon. They thrashed Gabon in Franceville 5-1, I think, less than a year ago. So sometimes I think we unfairly overly criticize them about not playing away from home. Don't get me wrong, it's unfair that they play at home all the time, but it's not like they struggle when they go play away. And this 2-0, I mean, I just saw the first goal in the 7th minute. Zambia were very lackadaisical in possession. The goalkeeper in Sabata tries to play an entry pass to the defensive midfielder. I think it was Benson Sakala. Bilal Khanous picked his pocket, and Youssef Enesiri scored. Good for him. I think it's been a while since he scored, but that'll do a lot for his confidence. That's the 14th straight win from Morocco. They are now 1 away from a crazy world record. Spain, 15 straight wins. So if they can get to 15, that'll be very, very impressive. Tunisia beat Equatorial Guinea 1-0 in Malabo in Equatorial Guinea. I did watch most of this game. The pitch was very, very heavy. I think it had rained a little bit before. The grass was very long. And so the ball wasn't traveling fast when people were making passes. It wasn't crisp, and it was very difficult to see attractive football. I thought it was a 50-50 first half where neither team really created too much, and there were very few shots on target. But in the second half, Equatorial Guinea really took it to Tunisia, and Tunisia were much more defending. I think thinking, let's just come away with a draw over here. And then it was a last-minute goal. A substitute striker from Club Africa, Firas Shawat, the club based out of Tunis. He picked the pocket of Carlos Akapo, Equatorial Guinean fullback, and then running down, unselfishly squared the ball into Mohamed Ali bin Ramadan's path, the midfielder from Al Ahly, who scored the goal, and cue bedlam in celebrations, because with that goal, they knew that if they got this win, automatically they would qualify for the World Cup. And so, look, I wasn't crazy impressed by the performance. They didn't concede a goal again, them and Cote d'Ivoire in Matchday 8. So they continue that streak as the only two sides that are yet to concede a single goal in these qualifiers. So that was impressive. But what was even more impressive from Tunisia is that, look, in the next round, next month, they play Sao Tome and Principe, and they play Namibia at home. Strong favorites in both of those matches, particularly against Sao Tome and Principe, So they could have just said, you know what, let's just get a point over here, and then we can just get one more point against any of those two teams, particularly Sao Tome and Principe, and we'll wrap up the World Cup of the year. But no, in the end, as much as they were defending in the second half, I think in the back of the mind, they did want to win this match. You could see it from the players that they played and from how they didn't really completely shut up shop. They always had that thing in the back of the mind of making 3 points. And there's something to be said about that. And I can feel a connection with the fans with this team. I think there's something there. That's about it for Tunisia. I'm not going to go into too much more detail. Algeria drew with Guinea 0-0 in Casablanca. It was a very poor performance, in my opinion, from Algeria. It was a match that could have probably finished 0-0 or 1-1. Guinea were not bad. They have a new coach, Paulo Duarte, at the helm, somebody that knows African football. He's coached Burkina Faso most notably in the past. Um, but yeah, I wasn't at all impressed by Algeria. And right now, there's a huge uh, campaign to get the coach Vladimir Petkovic out, despite the fact that Algeria are only 3 points away from qualifying for the World Cup. They're very, very heavy favorites, more than 90% chance of qualifying. And they have Somalia coming up in the next month. So they really should. And they're going to be playing Somalia at home. So they have 2 home matches at home next month. So they really should be qualifying. Still, people want the coach to go because they feel like the quality of the team was enough to get you to these tournaments, to the World Cup and to the AFCON. But the performances of this Algerian national team under this coach are not good enough to actually do anything once you get to the AFCON and to the World Cup. They feel like we're going to go over there and get knocked out in the group stages. Now, let's go into more detail for some of the matches that I did watch. Ghana versus Mali, which I watched the full 90 minutes. In terms of lineups, it was really, I think, beneficial for Ghana to get Thomas Partey back in midfield in particular, and Alexander Djiku. Alexander Djiku was, I think, finishing a move in the transfer deadline day, so that's why he wasn't there for the first match against Chad. And Thomas Partey, I think, was ill. I think Otto mostly got his lineup right. Maybe could have used Tariq Lamptey as a right back instead of Caleb Larenchi, who's more of a defensive midfield. But other than that, I think he got his 3-4-3 pretty spot on. Whereas Tom Saintfiet, I think, messed up by not starting Nene Dorjela. So he had spoken extensively on this podcast about how Nene Dorjelas and Kamori Doumbia are the 2 strong points for Mali in attack, the 2 wingers. Instead, he started Fodi Doucouré on the right wing instead of Nene Dorjelas. Maybe for defensive purposes, tracking back, things like that. But I think it was a mistake. Doucouré did nothing, and when Nene came on, he was very dangerous. And even Otto Addo admitted in the post-match press conference, they were a little bit scared of Nene. Yeah. Other than that, it was a really good atmosphere in Accra. It kind of reminded me of Kumasi, as one of my friends said as well. Like, that was a real atmosphere in Ghana. It shows you it's a real nation of football. And from the match, it wasn't a very eventful match, but early on in the 25th minute, I could see that Jordan Ayew's corner kicks were troubling Jiggy Diarra. He flapped that one, he missed it. Also, you could see that Mohamed Kudus, a handful of times in the first half, was taking on fullbacks, getting crosses in, trying to cut back at times, trying to get on his left foot and play a looping cross at others. He was probably Ghana's main source of attacking threat. And also, you could also see a big difference with Thomas Partey in midfield about how they were progressing the ball up the pitch. Several times he helped them progress the ball up the pitch quickly, either via passing or via dribbling. He was also shouldered by a midfielder named Sibo. I want to say Kevin Sibo. I might be wrong about that, but he was actually very active in midfield as well and had a good game. So it was a good double pivot lined up by Otto Addo. In the 48th minute, so early in the second half, Jordan Ayew gets another corner kick. Jiggy Diarra flaps at it again. And Jiggy Diarra is a goalkeeper for Mali that has a lot of experience. He's also the goalkeeper of Yanga in Tanzania. A lot of experience with that club as well. He's a good goalkeeper. Particularly with the ball at his feet, his distribution is amongst the best on the continent. However, he is a shorter goalkeeper. I don't think he's 6 foot. He's maybe 5'9", 5'10", something like that. And so in the air at times, people do consider that a weak point for him. And so this corner kick comes over, Jiggy Diarra flaps at it, doesn't reach it. And the ball actually hits Alexander Djiku's leg, and I don't think he's even looking at the goal. I think he's facing away from goal, and the ball hits his leg and goes in. So it was a little bit of fortune there. But overall, I mean, it was good set piece delivery from Jordan Ayew again. We said that was going to be important. That the game should be unlocked by a moment of individual brilliance. I don't know if we can call it a good corner kick set piece brilliance, but Jordan Ayew was good throughout the game, as was Kudus. Whereas I think they were much better than the individuals on Mali's side, who were Kamori Doumbia, who was okay, and then Nene Dorjelas was good when he came on, but it was just the last 30 minutes. But Fodi Doucouré was quite poor. And honestly, for the last 30 minutes, and it's not just Mali, there were 2 or 3 other African sides that I was very shocked by. There was a complete lack of urgency. I mean, at times they were not pressing. Last 30 minutes, you are, for all intents and purposes, eliminated from World Cup qualifying if you do not get at least a goal to draw, but probably need 3 points to climb back into this if you're Mali. And they were going at a pedestrian rhythm. I don't know if they were tired, which I'm assuming they were, but still, like, you have to leave everything out on the. I'm surprised they're not all out pressing. I'm surprised they were not throwing on 2 or 3 forwards. There was a complete lack of urgency, not just from the players, but also from the coaching staff. And they didn't create much for those last 30 minutes at all. It was just mostly long balls. I thought they were more interested in fighting and complaining with the referee than actually creating chances. So that was quite disappointing for Mali in the last 30 minutes. The lessons that I take away from this match, I wasn't expecting Ghana to win the midfield battle, but they did at home. So credit to them, and particularly Thomas Partey and Sibo. Jordan Ayew and the rest of the Ghana front line stepped up again. Look, they've only scored 1 goal, and that's not great. Obviously, you want to score more, but I can't have help but feel that they're a little bit hamstrung by how Otto Addo attacks matches. I think he's been a little bit too careful over the last 3-4 matches in the World Cup qualifiers, too cautious. But still, the quality and the synergy of that front line of Ayew and Semenyo and Kudus, there's something there as well. So again, it would have been important if they were going to AFCON, but they're not really going to AFCON. So I don't know if they can keep that synergy up until next summer, but that's something to monitor. And then the last thing was we talked about Otto Addo and his legacy prior to the match. This was a big win for his legacy. They've now Ghana practically assured to qualify for the World Cup, and so he gets that on his CV after missing out for the AFCON in what was a very embarrassing showing. South Africa versus Nigeria. This was the match I was most looking forward to throughout the entire weekend. The first thing that I noticed when I flipped on the channel, they're playing in Bloemfontein. How the hell is the stadium not full? This is maybe the most important match that South Africa has played. Well, Price is the semifinal of the AFCON, but prior to that, I would say it's more important than the quarterfinal that they qualified to in 2019 at the AFCON. They didn't really do anything in the 2013 AFCON. Probably since the World Cup. It's a huge match. And the stadium was not full, and the pitch was horrible. Pitch was completely torn up. So don't understand the decision to go with that, to go play there in Bloemfontein. I don't think they'll be doing it again. Even after the match, Hugo Broos, I think, was disappointed that the pitch was in the state that it was. I was also disappointed with the lack of attendance in the stadium, even though it did fill up a little bit later, but not good enough. Immediately, the pitch plays a role. Ola Aina, I think he was injured because of the pitch. Picks up a soft tissue injury. That takes away some of Nigeria's strength in the air because his long throw is such a big part of what they do as well. Ronald Williams was actually playing beautiful distribution early in this match. In the 5th minute, he passes the ball, I think 40 yards on the ground to Lyle Foster, who turns and plays Osman Apolis, who crosses the ball to Nkota, and Nkota heads the ball over. You see these moves, these combination moves, Williams, Foster, Apolis, and Nkota, 4 passes, maybe 70 yards of the pitch. Very few teams in Africa are doing. I'm telling you, I watched no less than 15 matches in AFCON qualifier, in World Cup qualifiers on the African continent over the last 10 days. Very few teams are playing this kind of football. Boom, 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 boom. Most teams are playing horizontal, incremental progression up the pitch, and then they get to the wide areas and pump in a kind of hopeless cross, and that's what they're doing. South Africa are playing, I'm going to say it, alongside Morocco, maybe playing the best football in Africa, particularly in how they use this combination play. It was impressive. Again, in this 19th minute, it was the same thing. A chance for Osman Apolis. I think it was Nkizana, Mbule, Nkota, Osman Apolis. I mean, and I wrote it here, best African side in terms of creating chances after combination play. There's no argument there at all. By the 20th minute, I felt like Nigeria were winning in American football, they'd say field position battle, meaning that they were more in South Africa's end, but South Africa had way more of the ball. So they were comfortable just being in their own end with the ball, and they were creating those chances when they could. In the 25th minute, South Africa score, and it's an own goal from Willem Troost-Ekong. I felt bad for him because I think he's one of the good guys in African football, and he had a really good year in 2024. But yeah, I don't think he's been great for Nigeria over the last 12 months. I think you'd probably admit that. And it was similar to how they scored against Lesotho in the first goal. Sipo Mbule finds a pocket, between the lines, as we spoke about time and time again. He releases Nkota, and Nkota gets down the wing, puts in a low cross, and it's an own goal. And it's just the attack with pace completely disjointed the Nigerian defense, and they're desperate to get back, and they're desperate to try and stop that cross. And as a result, you get your mechanics and your fundamentals all wrong, and that's why the ball goes into the back of the net. I put here, wow, Mbule is really good. Where have they been hiding him? Like, I remember a press conference with Hugo Bruce maybe about a year ago after the AFCON, and he was saying that, South Africa, yes, Tambazwane is incredible, beautiful player, everything, but we need to find a replacement for him. And we need to test these. He's talking about like reducing the age of some of the Bafana team. I think it's about, like, is this guy the replacement for Tambazwane? Maybe it's too early to say that, but where have they been hiding this guy, man? And he was at Sundowns apparently, and this guy is really good. He plays like my kind of like this guy's my family friend that I grew up with in Canada, but he's Algerian. Just he does such a good job of, and Bule does this too, putting his foot on the ball and then rolling it after. So you'll have it in front of you. You think you can go and reach for the ball with your foot, and he just rolls it away from you. But yeah, great player. But right before halftime, Nigeria equalize, and it's Calvin Bassey. Bassey actually starts the move, and man, that guy is so strong and powerful. And this is something that I think even Hugo Bruce touched on after the match. Like Nigeria, you could tell we're the stronger team. Maybe South Africa, the faster team, the more technical team, but Nigeria much stronger. And Calvin Bassey, especially when you had him next to Mohamed Kota, you could tell there was a clear size difference, man. And he plays a 1-2, I think, round in Kota, dribbles up the pitch. Ball gets to Ademola Lookman. Dele Bashiru finds the ball on the right wing. He puts in a cross, and Bassey just jumps over everybody and heads the ball and scores. After further viewing, yes, as everybody knows, it hit his hand and went in. If you had VAR, it wouldn't have counted. It shouldn't have counted. But with goals like that, sometimes I think to myself, like, they should, like, this in the spirit of the law, like that should count. Like he out jumped everybody. He headed the ball from 3 yards out. Yes, technically it shouldn't count, but if you're South Africa, I have much more of a problem with letting the ball find its way all the way across the pitch, and then how you defend that aerial ball. Because prior to the match, we said if South Africa were going to score, they were going to score with fast combination play, right? And if Nigeria were going to score, they're going to score with an aerial ball. And I don't think it was a secret to most people, and that's exactly how Nigeria scored. At halftime, Nigeria make the dreaded substitution. They bring on Tolu Arokodare, who excuse me, yeah, we talked about him. He's 2 meters tall, so I was really scared that he was going to be a big issue for South Africa, who, again, in the football culture of the country, they don't play and defend as many long aerial balls. So I put in my notes, how will Mbukazi deal with this? Pretty well is the answer. But I think Orokodare was much better than Dessers, the player he replaced. He created more chances. In the 50th minute, he dribbled past Ngizana, blasts a low ball across the face of goal. He dribbles past, and then it was like across the face of goal, but there was nobody there to attack the ball, neither at the near or the far post, and it goes all the way out, I think, for a throw-in. Ademola Lookman is a player that I was disappointed in. Here I have in my notes, he is not a number 10. For me, you have to play him on the left wing. I know you have Moses Simon there. I know you have Chukwueze on the other side. But he's just not number 10 in my opinion. He's better dribbling than trying to facilitate passes and stuff like that. He's not Sipo Mbule. And then after that, there's like injuries. Tebow Mokoena picks up an injury that's like 6-7 minutes down. But here again, I put there's no energy, there's no urgency from Nigeria. Why? Why are they pressing? Maybe they're not pressing because they know they'll get the ball passed around them like in circles, right? Because that's how good South Africa are at keeping the ball. But like, who was it that I was talking about? Mali. Like, you need to win this match, right? And I didn't feel like they completely wanted to win this at all costs. Maybe they gave in, maybe they gave up, but I felt like there was a complete lack of urgency, particularly in the last 15-20 minutes of the match. That's when people are desperate. Who cares if you concede? Get up and try to get a winning goal. Actually, I put here from the 83rd to the 90th minute, the last 10 minutes of the match, there's a deluge of South African attacks. They were the side that were more likely to score. So, excuse me. That was that. And the match finished 1-1. One of the predictions I got right, one of the few predictions I got right. And South Africa, I mean, They targeted 4 points out of 6 before the international break, and that's exactly what they did. And overall, I think it was deserved. What are the lessons from the match? Um, I think at the end of the day, Nigeria, because I listen to the journalists and everything, and I've seen people blame the federation and say, we've had 4 coaches in 8 matches, in the span of 8 matches. And I do agree that, like, I think what the original sin here was getting rid of Pissarro, as difficult as he was. But then, even then, like, you have to get the replacement correct if you decide to get rid of him. And to go from Eguavans, who was it after that? Eguavan and then somebody else, and then Eric Sekushel it's just too much. That's not good. But you can blame what as much as you want. I think South Africa were just the better team in the qualifiers. I think that's the key. Like, you can point out the problems that you had, and I think you did have problems throughout this World Cup campaign. But I think no matter what happened, I think even if they stayed with Pissarro, in my opinion, South Africa are going to be the better team. They I know they were at home, but they played much, much better than Nigeria. They were the more likely side to win with a bunch of replacement players. They didn't have anybody from their defense. They didn't have somebody else from their midfield. Two more players from the midfield. They didn't have Mofokeng. Like, they are the better side. It's as simple as that. It might be difficult to accept for a team like Nigeria, which is, again, African football royalty. But I think that we have to give credit to South Africa. Like, they're that damn good. And again, I put here, the other lesson is the South African replacements are really good. Like, I put here, where had they been hiding Sipo and Bule? All the defenders, the replacement defenders, have an incredible game, from Gazana to Zuko. So credit to the players and coaches, because it's one thing to have the quality, to have an extended squad of 23, 26 players, but then to maintain the same style of play, the attractive style of play. For me, that's the more impressive thing. So yeah, that was really, really cool to see. And then just one more quick note I have about lessons here. The Nigerian defender, Benjamin Frederick, very good performance, 20 years old. One of the top young African defenders, but the top young African defenders, Mbekazeli Mbukazi. This guy, man, he just put in another great game, another great shift, and it's getting to the point now where he has to start. Even when the more veteran players come back, this guy has to start. And it's getting to the point now where, this has to be his last season with Orlando Pirates. It's rare that I've seen a player, especially a defender. You can see young wingers play, you can see young strikers play, even young midfielders. But defenders at that position, center back at 19, to be so physically developed as he is, he's so strong. He's so calm. There was a point in the match where he intercepted a ball, dribbled past 3 or 4 players, and then tried a 40-yard chip over Stanley Nwabali, and it nearly came off. Like, this guy, man, he's just playing free and maturely and calmly. Incredible talent. I had to point that out. He was very, very good. All right, let's go 2 more matches. DR Congo versus Senegal. The best atmosphere of the weekend was at the Stade des Martyrs in Kinshasa. It was buzzing. 80,000 people. It reminded me of how World Cup qualifiers in Africa used to be. And here I'm gonna rant a little bit, not rant, but I'm gonna complain and be a little bit of a baby, because I know you guys all can relate to this. But when there were only 5 spots for Africa, the World Cup qualifiers meant a little bit more. And you got to, like, in one group in 2009, we had Algeria versus Egypt versus Zambia. It's like, wow, this is murderer's row of teams. And it meant more. I remember after every single game that you would win in World Cup qualifiers, people would go out and celebrate in the streets. Now it's like, Algeria plays against Guinea. Who gives a damn? They draw. Who cares? They beat Mozambique. Nobody cares, really. And so as a result, you can't have your cake and eat it too. We wanted more World Cup spots for the African continent. We got it. But at the same time, this dilutes the qualifiers. The qualifiers don't mean as much. But this match, DR Congo versus Senegal, it reminded me of World Cup qualifiers of times past. We talked about the fact that Senegal, they had defensive injuries. They ended up playing Abdoulaye Seck to replace Moussa Niakate, and Idrissa Gana Gueye and Lamine Camara come in midfield besides Pape Gueye. So this is much more of a defensive lineup than they had in the first match against Sudan, but still pretty balanced. Lamine Camara can still score goals. Pape Gueye can still score goals as well. And to be honest, look, from minute 1, to minute 90, in my opinion, Senegal were the better side. Like I was saying earlier about, Nigeria can point out to X, Y, and Z and all the different problems. At the end of the day, South Africa were better. Same thing here. Uh, DRC can end up complaining about whatever they want. From minute 1 to minute 90, Senegal were on the front foot and were the better side. That's not to say that DRC didn't have their moments, and they did, as we're going to talk about, particularly in the first 30 minutes, first 33 minutes, they were up 2-0. And it mostly came from, look over here, I'm going to put 25th minute, Mbemba plays a long ball into Ilya Meshek, tries to find Bakambu, but he's tripped up as his feet come together, penalty shot, but I don't think it was real. The next minute, in the 26th minute, Cedric Bakambu scores a goal, and I apologize, Cedric Bakambu. They can call you Baka goal now. After this goal, they can call you Baka goal. In the 26th minute, there's a throw-in, long throw-in, I think that's cleared. The ball is won back in midfield. It goes from Idu Kayembe to Yohan Wissa to Kayembe. So it's a 1-2 with Wissa. And then ball goes into Bakambu, who on his very first touch goes into a roulette, Zinedine Zidane roulette. And without even hesitating, without taking another touch, strikes the ball outside of the foot and it finds the back of the net. And then he does the Fimbu celebration and the crowd is screaming. And you could hear, it's again one of those where you have 80,000 people and there's complete eruption at the exact same moment. Just not just from the players, not just from the fans. And you could pick it up even on the poor quality of broadcasting, even the commentators, everybody screaming, complete catharsis. It was a top moment, And the commentator saying, "Thank you to my employers, the National Radio and Television of Congo, for letting me experience this." He's giving dedications. "Hello, my son. I know you're watching on TV." It's incredible. This is the 26th minute, man. Relax. It's still a lot of football to play. But in the 33rd, they actually got to another level. Aaron Wan-Bissaka passed to Meshak, who right back to right winger, turns around, looks at the left back, Malik Diouf, who's just 19, 20 years old, runs past him, skips past Kalidou Koulibaly, who's coming to cover his left back, and then puts in a cross that Edouard Mendy flaps at. So a mistake by Koulibaly and Mendy, two of your more senior players. And Yohan Wissa, I can't believe his luck is on the other side, takes 2 touches and barges it in 2-0. And again, same thing. People are sprinting all over. Actually, probably expending too much energy in a goal celebration. And I also got the impression that for fans and for the commentators, particularly this guy, man, they felt like the game was over almost. And you're going up against Senegal, Anyways, right before the goal, actually, the Senegal almost equalized. Malik Diouf, the same player that gets dribbled by, hits a cross and it hits the crossbar. 5 minutes later, Senegal pull one back. Arthur Masuaku takes a bad angle on Iliman Ndiaye, who plays a 1-2 with Pape Gueye in central midfield. And Iliman Ndiaye dribbles very well with 2 feet. I didn't know he could dribble as well with 2 feet. He plays the 1-2. The ball's on his left foot the entire time. Look at Riyad Mahrez, even though he's right-footed. He opens his body up, takes a shot, low on the ground, hits the post. Pape Gueye, who played the 1-2 with him, continued his run, and he finishes, taps in the rebound 2-1. Iliman Ndiaye, stop the recapping the match action just to say, this guy might not just be a promising prospect. This guy is starting to slowly creep into one of the better, if not the best, African attacking midfielders or forwards that we have on this continent. Yeah, you think he's going to take Sadio Mane's place before the AFCON. This guy is incredible. Very, very good. One of my men of the match for sure, one of my men of the match for Senegal. He's at the heart of 2 other chances before the end of the first half, which I'm not going to go into because you guys don't need a minute-by-minute breakdown. In the 53rd minute, we have 2-2. We have the equalizer. It's Nicholas Jackson. Iliman Ndiaye is at the start of the action again. And then they actually play football pretty well, similar of South Africa. So it goes Iliman Ndiaye, Crépin Diatta, Idrissa Gana Gueye, Koulibaly. So Iliman Ndiaye is on the right wing, and then the ball slowly progresses itself to the left side of the pitch via Crépin Diatta, right back, Idrissa Gana Gueye, central midfielder, and then the left center half, Kalidou Koulibaly, gets onto the ball. And Kalidou Koulibaly against Sudan did a great job of playing long distribution. And here again, this is what creates the goal. And we said that this could be actually how Senegal creates their goals, is using the more direct route. That's what worked against Sudan. And Kalidou Koulibaly, with the outside of his foot, I think plays a 20 or 30-yard pass into Sadio Mane, who touches the ball to Nicholas Jackson, 2-2. Beautifully constructed goal. And now you could Immediately after that second goal, you could feel the air completely suck out of the Stade des Martyrs. I put here 3 minutes later, there's a penalty shout. That's a weak penalty shout. They don't get the penalty, and water bottles start raining on the pitch. So you could see that not only do they don't believe anymore, they're starting to get frustrated, and you could see the signs of physical fatigue on the DRC players. Ilya Meshek, but particularly Yoan Wissa, are done. To be fair, Yoan Wissa hasn't been playing football. He's been sitting out for Brentford, trying to force a way out. He hasn't been playing. There's nothing, you can't just train and expect to be fully match fit. You need to play football to be match fit. And so I thought Sebastian Desailly did a horrible job. He kept him on until the 76th minute, when he himself asked to be subbed out. But you could see that he was done for, 10, 15 minutes prior to that. So he waited too long to make those substitutions. In my opinion, that was bad coaching. And yeah, they just look physically knackered. And by this point, Senegal are all over the DRC, and they very much deserve their third goal that they get. It's Crépin Diatta, who gets the ball to Sheikh Sabali, who comes on the right wing. Cross, give and go, gets the ball to Pape Matar Sarr, who very decisively finishes, and that is that 3-2. And it was a very ugly ending to the game, that there were like bottles thrown from all corners of the stadium. There were videos after where you could see Congolese supporters kicking the plastic chairs off the Stade des Martyrs and throwing them as well on the pitch, just completely vandalized and destroyed the pitch. And it's one of those losses after the loss against Morocco at the 2018 qualifiers to qualify for the World Cup, the loss to Tunisia for the 2022 World Cup qualifiers. This is the third massive failure that this generation has. When you think about Cedric Bakambu, when you think about Arthur Maswak, when you think about Chancel Mbemba, they've been good for the DRC, don't get me wrong, right? They finished fourth place in the last AFCON. They haven't been horrible, but 3 consecutive heartbreaks like this, one after the other, in terms of World Cup qualifying, I worry that might be their legacy. Other lessons I have is that Senegal are damn good, and they prove that they can play through adversity. It's one thing to win this kind of match at home, but to go to Stade des Martyrs in Kinshasa, again, I keep saying that. I hope you guys understand what that signifies. One of the more intimidating places to play in Africa. And to go down 2-0 and to climb your way back and win this 3-2 and to be the better side again for the 90 minutes against a very, very good DR Congo side, a side that since the last AFCON have been incredibly consistent. This is the international window that Pape Thiaw needed. We said that he needed 6 points probably. He got the 6 points, and he got them in a way that completely inspires and instills confidence into him as a coach and as a man. Not only will his confidence have grown, but everybody else's confidence in him will have grown completely. And I think now he's finally at the level of, Aliou Cisse in terms of that respect and confidence. Perfect international window for him, and now they just have to finish the job. Yeah. Finally, let's talk about, 2 more matches. Cape Verde against Cameroon. Cape Verde are without their best center half, Logan Costa, who plays at Villarreal. And Cameroon pretty much had, a full team here. Carlos Baleba was back. Choupo-Moting is there, but he's on the bench. He didn't really play too much. And, Cameroon, the modus operandi is going to be set pieces and crosses. Third minute, they have a chance. It's a set piece. Kevin Nkudu to Christopher Wu, but the cross was hit too deep. In the 7th minute, the way Cape Verde were going to score this is they have this striker who I completely didn't really know about. His name is Livramento. And he has a warning sign in the 7th minute. In the 7th minute, he dispossesses Brian Mbeumo, and Cameroon are all in Cape Verde's side. And he's the number 9. So he dispossesses Mbeumo, who's come back sort of to collect the ball. And he starts running with the ball 60 yards from deep. And he starts sprinting. And he's running past Cameroonian defenders like Christopher Wu. And he gets a very good shot on target that Onana palms away. And this is one of those players that you could see running with the ball. He's faster than people that are running without the ball. And when you have a player like that, that's very, very dangerous. Like Mohamed Amin Amour is another one of those. So that immediately piqued my attention. And then there was a lot of sterile possession from Cameroon. Cape Verde had some long set pieces. Another warning shot from Livramento in the 30th minute. He runs in behind. The ball goes out to Ryan Mendez. But then Livramento challenges the cross, and you can see he's just a little bit of a menace. There's a penalty shot for Cape Verde in the 36th minute, no penalty. And the real first chance for Cameroon. So you need a victory. You need to beat Cape Verde in Cape Verde. In the first half, you have one real chance, and it's in the 45th minute. And it's George Kevin Nkudu cutting it on his right foot, crossing the ball again. Crosses. And it's flicked off by Zambo Anguissa and saved by Vojinho. By the 53rd minute, I put Cameroon are playing with more urgency, but then really from the 45th to the 53rd, the first 8 minutes of the second half, they're really throwing everything at Cape Verde. They're getting forward, and they're ripe for the counterattack. And that's how Cape Verde scored their goal in the 54th minute. Livramento, in caps locks here, in capital letters, pushes Carlos Baleba off the ball. You know what it takes to push Carlos Baleba off the ball? That's like pushing Mbokazi off the ball. Like these strong, low center of gravity, thick players. Livramento pushes him off the ball, picks the ball up, and starts running with the ball, and he uses his pace to outrun Christopher Nuutolo with the ball. They're without the ball. And Onana hesitates a bit too much to come out, and it's 1-0. Like, he counterattacked. Here's the problem again in the 61st minute, counterattacking. And by the 70th minute, we're starting to get into desperation time for Cameroon. And I put, are Cameroon going to create anything or just pump in crosses? The answer was no. They were just going to pump in crosses. And to be fair, Cape Verde dealt with them fairly easily. They nearly added a second in the 90th minute, but Willie Semedo hits the side netting. It was Willie Semedo running to Jamiro Montero. Semedo was counterattacking, gets the ball to Jamiro Montero. Montero gets the shot off. Onana gives up a rebound, and Semedo probably should have scored with the rebound. He was all alone, him and the goalkeeper, but he hits the side netting. Cameroon's best chances, again, like in the first half, came in the very last minute of the second half. 2 chances from crosses, but they were well dealt with from Vojinho. They were corner kicks and crosses. What are the lessons here? The lessons, first of all, for Cape Verde, this is a beautiful reward for a golden generation of players, because this team, even though they don't have too many players that survived from 2013, that team that first qualified them to the AFCON, for me, this is a continuation of that success. This is the crowning moment of 12 years of emergence of Cape Verdean football. So people like Bupista, who was, an assistant coach for the Cape Verdean national team for such a long period of time. People like Ryan Mendez, who I think was a part of that team. Vojinho was a part of that team, the goalkeeper. Ryan Mendez, the captain, the winger forward. Gary Rodriguez, the other winger forward. Jamiro Montero. But also people, again, that are not in the squad anymore, but that built up Cape Verdean football. Julio Tavares, Babanco. These are players that, are also partly responsible for this success. It's one of those where it's like, thank you, even the people that aren't here yet, thank you for all that you've done for Cape Verdean football to get it where it was. And also, for me, this Cape Verde success, as I mentioned in the pre-match preview, this is going to be an example for these other island nations with the big diasporas, like Comoros, like Madagascar, that they can also qualify for the World Cup. Because it's one thing to qualify for an extended AFCON. To qualify for an extended World Cup would still be very difficult. They did it. If Cape Verde can do it, Comoros can do it, and Madagascar can do it as well. For Cameroon, big slice of humble pie. And I think, sometimes the big nations, whether it's Cameroon or Nigeria or Algeria or, the top, 6-7 nations, I think sometimes they think that they're good enough, their national team is good enough, they have enough quality that their national team can survive battles of ego, can survive governance problems, can survive bad coaching hires. And often they can. And that's why people think they can do it, because oftentimes, despite all of those things, you have enough quality within your ranks to qualify to an AFCON or to qualify to a World Cup. Usually catches up with you over there. But now, sometimes it can catch up to you in qualifying. And that's what happened here. For me, this result it seems to like a little bit of a cop-out. It seems like too easy to say, but it's also the result of the bad governance since they wanted to replace Rigobert Song and they haven't been able to. Heck, if you want to push it all the way back to the dismissal of Tony Conceição, which I thought was unjust and unfair and didn't make any sense, we could do that as well. But Cameroon, since Eto'o arrived, has been not necessarily all his fault. I think, there's something to be said about giving the federation enough autonomy, letting him run things, and if he doesn't do a good enough job, then vote him out. But you don't have to come in and constantly interfere if you're the Ministry of Sport as well. But that kind of infighting eventually leads to something like this. They were still Joachim Monunga. I mean, the assistant coach was still not on the touchline with Mark Brice. And what a way for Mark Brice to lose his first match as coach of Cameroon at the worst possible opportune time. Last match that we're going to talk about is Gabon versus Cote d'Ivoire. Wasn't a thriller, 0-0. No Simone Dengra starting for Cote d'Ivoire. I thought that was a little bit weird, but they did bring on Nicolas Pepe. I did say that you probably need to take off either Amad Diallo or Simone Dengra if you're going to score more goals. They took off Dengra, brought in Nicolas Pepe. Didn't really get the goals there. And Gabon, to be fair to them, assembled the Avengers for this match. The attacking trio of, Bouanga and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Jimmy Alavina. In midfield to have Mario Lamina, to have Didier Ndong, who I haven't seen in a long time with the national team, to have Giller Congo. I really wanted to, I didn't have the time, but I really wanted to do some research and see when was the last time these guys all played together. It must have been like 2021, 2019, something like that. So they really brought back all of the big names, all of the old players, all of the veterans to try and get this result against Cote d'Ivoire. And spoiler alert, they played really, really well. They didn't get the result they needed. They needed a win, but they played really well. I'm not going to go into, again, all the nitty-gritty details. The main point is that Denis Bouanga was, again, Gabon's best player. In the 8th minute, in the 35th minute, he was the one that was creating chances. Usually came from counterattacks. He'd find space on the left wing, and some of his dribbling rivaled Iliman Ndiaye's, but he did it with pace. And he'd cut out on his right foot. Sometimes he would put in a low cross that they wouldn't connect on. Sometimes he would try to get a shot, but it was blocked. And Gabon were really, in my opinion, the better side in the first half, even though Cote d'Ivoire probably had the better chances. In the 45th minute, Justin Conan put in a low ball across the face of goal that was begging for somebody to knock it in. Didn't happen. And Nicolas Pepe probably has the referee in his in his targets now, in his sights, because he probably had two. I wouldn't say they were real penalty shots. They were penalty shots. I wouldn't say they were legitimate ones, but he felt completely slighted by the referee not giving it to him. One, okay. In the 50th minute, Nicolas Pepe, another penalty shot. And one thing that I had noticed, that I put in my notes over here that I should probably talk about after, Sebastian Haller looked very, very slow throughout this entire match. He started the match for Cote d'Ivoire. I didn't understand why he didn't start in the first match against Burundi. They started Vakun Bayo instead. I kind of get it now. Like, he's not the player that he was even when they won the AFCON 18 months ago. He looks a lot slower than he did before, and I think he's quite past it. At least that's how it seems. Yeah, 57th minute was Bouanga again. And then really once we get to the 70th minute, the same criticism that I had for Mali, the same criticism that I had for Nigeria. I put, why are they not playing as desperate as they should be, Gabon? They're the ones that need to score. But they didn't really do that until, they didn't really do it until the end of the match. But I thought Cote d'Ivoire were defending a little bit naively, which is uncharacteristic of them. The match was starting to stretch and open up, and there was chances on both ways. But I still think Gabon were not as desperate as they should have been. At the same time, for Gabon, drawing there is not the worst result, because Cote d'Ivoire can maybe drop points as long as they draw, one of their last two matches. It wasn't like, with Nigeria or with Mali, who needed the 3 points absolutely. I think Gabon could be like, you know what, a draw is not the end of the world. We just need to win our last 6 points. Yeah. The lessons from this match with Cote d'Ivoire was worrying from an attacking perspective, and with Emers Faye, it's been worrying for a long period of time now, but also reassuring from the defensive perspective. They didn't concede a goal, dumb like Tunisia again. Still are yet to concede a goal in World Cup qualifiers. And then my other point is, like, Gabon are quite good. Like, I thought if they could put off all their off-field problems away, focus solely on the pitch, and get this golden generation together one last time, like when I was talking about Cape Verde, but from 2012, you have Bruno Akweli-Manga, you have, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Alavina and Bouanga were more like rivals that in 2017 and 19. Bogielo Kanga has been there from the very beginning. Mario Lemina has been there for a very long time as well. Didier Ndong has been there since 2013-14. So this is a generation of players that have come up together that I think have actually not lived up to expectations because they hosted 2 AFCONs and you would have wanted them to get to a semifinal or something. They haven't been able to do that. There's been a lot of problems, especially at the Cameroon AFCON when, remember Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Mario Lemina tested positive after I think they were hanging out with people in Dubai, and then they had heart lesions on scans, and then they were at the AFCON as well, there were reports that they were going out and clubbing and stuff. A lot of off the field problems. I think people feel like their personalities and their personas are bigger than it should be because they haven't had the success with the national team. Maybe they have had it with their clubs, but if they can get this team back together, give it one last go at the AFCON, I'm curious to see what they can do. I think they can do something, and they're being well coached by Thierry Muyuma. But now they just need to make sure they get their 6 points and hope Cote d'Ivoire drops points, but I don't think that's going to be likely. So anyways, that was the recap of the World Cup qualifiers. It's finally over. That was a very intense 10 days for me. I watched so much football. I think I might take this weekend off, to be completely honest. And then we're back. I'm going to start covering local championships. So maybe you guys have been begging for more PSL coverage. Maybe we're going to do some big matches in the PSL and Egyptian Premier League and the Moroccan Botola and the Algerian Ligue 1 and try and do what's going on around the continent. Maybe that's going to be the next video. As well as Matchday 2 episode 2, which is going to be about the 1996 AFCON final. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and speak to you all very soon. Peace.